Brandi Jordan. I'm a doula based in Los Angeles and Nice, France. This is my show, Dear Doula, where I break down the how-to and how not to parent in the early years. I have worked with thousands of parents from around the world in all walks of life. There's nothing that I haven't seen, and I'll be here to tell you my tips and tricks of getting through early parent life with ease. I'll be there to hold your hand through pregnancy, birth, life with baby, and the ins and outs of raising good humans. I'll be cheering you on by discussing all the things that you're doing right with a sprinkle of gentle advice on how we can all be better parents, partners, and members of our collective village. Let's get into this episode.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to season 4 of Dear Doula. It feels so good to be back. And you know what? It also feels good to take a break. You might have noticed there was quite a length of time between our last episode and the start of season 4. And it has a lot to do with what we're going to be talking about today. And it's really about the emotional load of raising children in 2026. It's one of the things that are so important to me and why I started doing this work to begin with. Is I feel really strongly that there has to be spaces online that give a balanced look about parenthood. On one hand, I feel like the current, let's say 2025, 2026, or even longer version of what parenting looks like is this: you never sleep, you look terrible, you don't have sex with your husband, and the kids are so annoying, and it's wine o'clock, and you can't wait to have that glass of wine because parenting is so terrible. And I know part of that is venting, and I want it to be normal to say that parenting isn't always fun and it isn't always a walk in the park. But I think parenting, a lot of it is what you think about it, what your mindset is around it. And so I was having this conversation with a client that I often don't know how to answer when someone says something like, don't you remember the kids were young, how you just couldn't wait for them to go to bed? Or, I don't miss that stage. Wasn't it just terrible when you had crazy 4-year-olds? And on one hand, I always want people to feel comfortable to vent about what it really is like to be a parent. On the second hand, there's so much about parenting and birth and children and all the stages that's so wonderful and so fun and so magnetic. And I want to say that I don't remember the toddler stage like this. I don't remember the infant stage or the kindergarten stage as being something that I couldn't wait to get out of. And I hesitate in answering that way because people automatically think that oh, you're being holier than thou, or you just want people to think you're so perfect, your situation's so perfect. And that's not it at all. I'll be the first to say kids can be annoying. It can be tiring. It can be tiring on your marriage to raise young children, especially that 0 to 5 age when so much is being poured into them. At that time, there's not a lot they're doing for themselves. But I want to say this for the parents who want to see the time they have with their kids as this borrowed time, that we only have so much of it. I always say that you have only 18 summers with your children. And when you say it like that, it's really not that long. I'm on 2 different planes of parenting, in that I have my now little ones who you started with are now 8 and 10. And my oldest is 18 and started his first year in college. And so I've had this, launching to elementary and next year launching to junior high and also launching my adult-sized child into college. And I can't say, looking back on those 18 years, those 18 summers that I have with my oldest, that I wouldn't want more of that, or I wouldn't want this rush to get back to them. And I think that so much energy is put on to talking about how terrible it is that we're not spending enough time talking about how wonderful it can be. And again, this is not to invalidate if you're right now going through a terrible time, or you're dealing with postpartum depression, or you're fighting with your spouse. I want to invite you to the idea that so much of it is how we choose to see it. When it comes to parenting, thoughts can either be a life vest or a parachute, or it can be a cancer or a prison if you only see your 2-year-old as being annoying. Or if you think about, the terrible teenage years, if you only see it in those terms, you often get stuck with seeing your children in that way, seeing your partner in that way. And so my number one suggestion for how we get through 2026 and raise our children with, enough connection and enough, when I say connection, not only for your children, but for yourself and for the time, if you have a partner, the time that you spend with your partner, I really just want to embolden us to start thinking about parenting differently. You don't have to be with the mainstream of you can find hours and hours of social media, TikTok, Instagram, wherever you want to go, that really talks about like, yeah, what a bummer parenting is. And I want to tell you, I've had 3 kids. I am married, so I do have a partner that helps me go along with this, but it's been pretty effing fantastic. And I don't mean that to be like, I don't have any problems or my kids don't get into stuff. It's really about, I choose to see like how grateful I am to be able to birth these children. They're so different and they're so funny and they have so much that I know they're going to be able to give to the world. And like their time with me and my husband is just a stepping stone. And so I'm trying to stay in that mindset of how grateful I am to have this time with them. And I'm building a foundation at home that's really about how to ensure that when they're 18, 20, 25, that they still want to spend time with us. They want to come home and eventually they want to bring in their families to be with us. And I do think right now it's counterculture. I'll get much more views and many more downloads if I don't buck the trend that parenting is so terrible and it's so hard. And I think if you're doing it right, it can be difficult. It can be overwhelming at times. But I don't know that I would characterize it as hard. And you might be listening to this and being like, girl, are you what? And I really want to say this with like, I'm saying it with so much humbleness of all the situations that people might be in, all the situations that I've been in as a parent, and thinking about myself as a child and all the things my parents must have gone through to get me to the point of launching and then to having my own family. I just want you to give yourself a lot of grace, give your children a lot of grace, give your partners a lot of grace. And let's talk about what we could be doing differently in 2026. I find that so many people that I talk to characterize the last year as being difficult, as being overwhelming. I started off this episode talking about this like break of time that I took. I can say 2025 was overwhelming for me as a mom, and not in a way of like, my kids are doing something wrong or I feel like I'm failing them. It was more about all the separate little things that you have to do as a parent and be on top of, while also being on top of your own personal life and your marriage. And for me, my business and all the other things that I'm doing. And I found that for me personally in 2025 to be a bit overwhelming. Now, I did have a child that was graduating high school and going off to college. So that in itself was a lot of different emotions and like a lot of things you just have to do to get ready to launch a child. I don't think we talk about that very often. Obviously, people who are listening to Dear Doula are usually in that 0 to 10-year-old range of children. There aren't a lot of spaces we talk about the fact that launching a kid, an adult-sized kid, because he's still a kid at 18, we don't talk about like, it's not a cakewalk. It takes a lot of energy and time to make that leap. So for me, I was dealing with that. I also had direct service, one-to-one private postpartum client that I was working with. I was traveling back and forth between France and Los Angeles and New York and then Michigan. And there were so many things that were happening. My business grew. For those who don't know, I own a postpartum agency called The Cradle Company, and we staff newborn care, long-term nannies, et cetera, across the United States. But the point of this is not an ad for the Cradle Company. The point of this is that running that business, we grew by a whopping, 62%. And I actually know those numbers because I met with my accountant on Tuesday. 62% my agency grew in 2025. And I don't think I really realized how hard it is to run a business and be a mom until last year. And I'm not saying that like, oh, this is new information. Of course, we know that working moms is hard. Like, that's not what I mean. That the energy that it takes to grow something, and whether it's children or a business, it takes so much from your person, from your time. And I felt that a lot of 2025, I was either parenting or working. And many of you might have experienced that. And one of the things that I'm really implementing for 2026 is to make sure that me, mom, goes back at the top of my to-do list. And so I'm going to challenge all of you to do the same thing. And so I always say the first 3 things on your to-do list are the most important things. These are things that you're really committed to making happen. And so for me, I'm committed to a couple things. I'm committed to spending time on the things that I personally enjoy, which means Brandi being on that list. I like salsa dancing. I like doing hot yoga. I like spin classes. I like hiking. I love looking at interior design, and I wouldn't call it scrapbooking, but just thinking of concepts. Like when I build my dream house, I might want that rug that I found at some magazine in Spain, and this magazine that I have. I'm really big Cote de Paris. If you don't have that magazine, if you like interior design, you need to get it. It's amazing. And Cote de Sude as well. They're French magazines that I usually get to a subscription to my home in France. And anyway, I look at concepts, look at different designs, and different things that are out there and cut them out and kind of like think about the things that I would like to make in a home. I don't necessarily have to buy those things. I just find it fun to do that. And so I'm committed to do more things like that. Don't really have a purpose. Like there's no point in me cutting out things and putting them onto a scrapbook when it comes to interior design and architecture, which I love. But I'm doing it anyway because I don't think I nurtured a lot of that last year. And so one of the ways that I started doing this, I made the decision at the end of taping season 3 of Dear Doula to take a break. And I would give myself a deadline that I have to do the next season by this point or this time. And like, you have those thoughts in your head for anyone who is a working mom, dad, grandparent, whatever you are when it comes to being a caregiver. If you are driven and you want to create and build things, you usually give yourself timelines. Like I have to have the next season by X amount of time. And there's that voice that says, oh, if I wait, I'm going to lose listeners and subscribers and no one's going to come back to you. And I definitely had those thoughts, but I did it anyway. And so there's something right now on your plate that you're deciding right now, like, is this something that you want to do for your kids or for yourself? Ask yourself, like, what is that emotional toll? 2026 for me, I don't know how many of you are into like Chinese horoscopes or astrology, but anyway, this year is the year of the horse. And I happen to be a horse. And this year is about taking risks, taking chances, but also like pouring into the things that are important for you, yourself, your self-development. And so I'm really committed, and I hope that more people will join me. I'm really committed in developing myself as much as I'm willing to develop my children. That is what needs to happen in 2026. There's so much time spent on picking the right school and making sure we have the right extracurricular activities and making sure we have the right experiences that we want our kids to be a part of. And like, I take it very seriously, as many of you do, like shaping the next generation, shaping the children that are in our homes so they contribute something amazing to society. But I think oftentimes where it gets hard and where we get on this train of this is so hard and this is so terrible and this is so annoying is because we're not filling up our own cups. We're not filling up our marriages. We're not filling up our friendships. And so for like people who know me, my close friends, I'm all about us getting together in real life with my sisters. Every now and then we'll like do like a sister Zoom because we're all over the country and I'm often out of the country. Those are non-negotiables. And so I want to ask you, like I like to give homework in a good way. So I want to ask you to start thinking about the non-negotiables. I used to call this the parenting manifesto when I did like mommy and me classes. Like, what are the things for your family? Everyone has a different parenting or family manifesto. Like one of our family manifestos is that we prioritize experiences over things. And so what that looks like in practice, for example, for Christmas, you know, my kids, they know they're going to get gifts. They want gifts for Christmas, but it's not like a big deal. Like we probably get them 3 or 4 like things they really want and then trinkets. And then I have 3 sisters. They have grandparents on both sides. And so then they get things from other people as well. But there isn't this like onslaught of presents. And before anybody gets their panties in a wad, it's fine if yours is an onslaught. You know, everyone's family manifesto should be different. And so for us, because we prioritize experiences, we start having a lot of conversations about like around like before Christmas, before New Year's, like where do we want to go next year? What do we want to see? Like what kind of things do we want to experience? We love to travel. And so we ask our kids, like we could go anywhere in the world, like where would you go? How do we pick? And so a lot of our time is spent thinking about the experiences we want our kids to have. We have that conversation with them often. And so they are being shaped to enjoy experiences over things. And your manifesto doesn't have to be the same as mine. It doesn't have to be the same as your cousin or your sisters or your parents. It's all about being intentional. And that's what has to happen in 2026. If you found 2025 to be draining, to be annoying, to be hard, part of that, I'm going to say 9 times out of 10 is because you, and yes, I'm talking to you, did not spend enough time prioritizing yourself. I know there's always pushback when you say things like that, because people might say, well, like, I don't have the financial situation that X has or that you have. And it's not really about that. It's about what you prioritize. I've been at all sides of the spectrum. So I can see very clearly what it looks like to stress on a family when you're dealing with income issues or a lost job or healthcare problems or a sickness in the family. It obviously dampens what you can experience in your family and how that, you know, what permeates, like what becomes important. But let's say those things aren't happening. You don't have a major health crisis. Let's say your parents don't have a major health crisis. Most of the things that happen in our life really comes around us being intentional and deciding this is what we want to see happen. And so I want you to be thinking about right now, you're going to either pause this podcast or you're going to get off of it and make a list. What are your family manifesto non-negotiables? Non-negotiables for us is we need to travel somewhere at least once or twice a year that we haven't been, or go back to a place that we love. So like, for example, one of the places that we love is Vietnam, but we've been there so many times that like, even my kids are like, I want to go to Vietnam or I want to go to Thailand. We've nixed that for 2026 because we want them to experience something new. Because one of our things is always experiencing new things. That's one of my parenting manifestos. And so to be intentional about that, we're having conversations now. It means I'm going to block off my work schedule now so that it isn't just all of a sudden I look up it's November and I haven't made the time to do those things. I did not prioritize my own self-care last year. And so for this year, I'm being mindful and I'm not jumping on like a New Year's resolution. Like I don't really do that, but I'm putting it into my schedule. Like I'm going to be getting up like 2 or 3 days early a week to go to this yoga class that I want to go to because I don't really like to work out in the evening. I know you're like, oh, when your kids go to bed, you can do it, but that's not my thing. And so I know to make it happen this year, I have to be intentional. Like we used to have that, like, what's our word of the week, kids? It's intentional for 2026. Like if you want to raise your children in 2026 with ease and without, I wouldn't say no stress, but less stressful, more peaceful, let's say. Let's focus on what we want and what not we don't want. A more peaceful parenting experience, a more peaceful relationship experience, a more peaceful relationship with self. It's all about intention. And so if I had to summarize what I think is the most important for people who are trying to raise children in 2026 in a more peaceful way, in a more connected way, is to be intentional. And I know you guys don't want to hear this, but try putting yourself first a little bit. I know that's hard because we've been taught from a very young age, we've been socialized that our children come first in many ways. And for many things, that is the case. But I want you to find those spaces where they don't come first, right? And one of my intentional things, I want to dance more this year in 2026. So I used to often go like 2 or 3 nights a week dancing. And I don't mean like club twerk dancing. I like to salsa dance. I might even learn ballroom dancing this year. I don't know, but I know I want to dance more. And so I'm going to be intentional and to pick like one evening a week, or I don't know, I haven't looked at the classes yet, or afternoon or whatever, where it's going to be about that. And so that means my kids' activities aren't going to be scheduled on that day. I'm not going to be running around dropping people from here to there on that day. I'm not going to cancel it to forgo something for my kids or whatever. Obviously, if something big is happening, I would. But I'm being intentional to put myself on the schedule in the same way that I would do so with my children. And I see that for couples as well. With my husband, like I'm thankful that I'm in a relationship where we both put a lot of energy into raising our kids. And so I know when I say that like, oh, it's not as hard, I'm not speaking for, you don't have to message me. I'm a single mom and it's super hard because I'm doing everything. I understand that. Like I was raised by a single mom. So that's not what I mean when I talk about like real struggles. I'm talking about how I see my children and how I want them to see me. I want them to, when they walk into a room and I see them, I want them to know like my eyes light up. I'm so happy to see them and not like, oh, what do you want? Doesn't mean that I haven't said that before and I haven't done that. But again, being intentional about how I respond and how I want them to see me responding, it has to be intentional. It's a mindset shift. And so if you're thinking about how to have more peaceful coexistence with your toddler and their terrible twos, it's really going to be, how do you see them? If you see the terrible two, you see it as terrible, for example. I say that because when everyone says it, but I actually love 2-year-olds. I love that they're feisty and they're sassy and like they're like dramatic and falling out. Like I wish we could do that when we were upset. And so I actually love 2-year-olds. And so I experience 2-year-olds in a different way because I don't see it as annoying. It doesn't drive me crazy. Like I don't mind if they're whiny and demanding because I understand they're trying to like figure their world out. And so everyone has an age group that like irks them. And it could be a newborn, it could be 2-year-olds, a 10-year-olds, 15-year-olds, and don't feel bad about it. We all have it. Like for me, actually the age group like in parenting that I dislike the most is like that 9 to 11 age when like they think everything is funny and they're so silly and like they don't want to take showers and like they're like telling stories. You're just like, what was that about? But you like have to be super there and in it. But I choose to see that as like, this like flowering of personality. And like, I get to see like that shift in them. Like I've rewired my brain to see it as cute and funny and quirky versus like, oh, it's so annoying. And back to what we're talking about, I just really want us to be thinking about in 2026 as we raise children, because I feel like when I look at the internet, when I look online, there's just so much happening in the world. And it's hard for me personally. I feel like I'm an empathic person who sees what's happening in the world, and I want to help change things. I want things to be better, not only for myself, obviously, but for my own children and for my neighbors and my neighbors' children. And so I often take on what's happening, and it gets hard to manage, like, how do I affect change in like the wider community, but also it's a lot of work just parenting the people within my four walls. So I'd love to hear from you all. What are you doing differently in 2026 to give yourself a more peaceful parenting experience in 2026? I'm going to vote for being more intentional, putting yourself back on your to-do list, and making sure that you start thinking about the things that are really important for you and your family and start instilling those values within your children. So as always, I thank you all so much for being on this ride with me with Dear Doula, sending your questions. If you love what you've heard, please share this with your friends. If you haven't already, wherever you're listening to our podcast, please like and subscribe, leave us a review. It's the thing that helps us to grow and helps more people find us. And then as always, if you have ideas about being a guest host, or you just have questions about parenting or a topic that you'd like to discuss, you can always reach me on my Instagram at Brandi with an I _Jordan_official. We also have a Dear Doula podcast at Dear Doula Podcast on Instagram. And you can also email us at Brandi@deardoulapodcast.com. Thank you all so much for listening, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye, everybody.